It's Wednesday, May 27, 2026, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Alabama Republicans attempt to dismantle majority black districts. It continues as they go to the Supreme Court. Clarence Thomas speaks on the issue. We'll tell you exactly what was said. The November race for the Texas U.S. Senate is set. Democratic State Representative James Talarico will face Texas Attorney General, the very corrupt Ken Paxton, who defeated four-term Senator John Cornyn last night. Folks, and of course, the GOP is completely targeting Talarico in every step of the way. The Black Maternal Health Momnibus Act was recently reintroduced as the Momnibus Act. What happened to the black part? Nearly 100,000 Texas students from the 2021-2022 freshman class did not graduate in 2025. We'll talk to two researchers from the Intercultural Development Research Association about their latest report on Texas's dropout rate. Plus, we continue to honor Clarence Jones, one of the closest advisors of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I'll have my one-on-one with him when we talk to him when we prepare for the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. King. Folks, it's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the fine. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
Folks, Alabama's Republican Attorney General Steve Marshall went to the Supreme Court to overrule a lower court and allow the state to proceed with a special primary using a Republican-favored congressional map. Marshall asked for an emergency stay of Tuesday's injunction issued by a three-judge district court that blocked Alabama's use of the map, which was passed by the legislature in 2023. That map would likely produce a 6-to-1 split between Republicans and Democrats, eliminating the seat of Congressman Shamari Figures. Now, right now, it's 5-2 regarding Figures as well as Congresswoman Terry Sewell. The expected shift would come from eliminating one of those two seats. Tuesday, the unanimous three-judge panel ruled that it violated the Constitution's 14th Amendment by discriminating against African Americans and diluting their vote. Still, the state argued in its high court filing on Wednesday that the lower court's decision is legally flawed because it essentially forces the state to prioritize creating two majority black districts over all other considerations. Governor Kay Ivey has called a special primary election for August 11th using the legislature's map, which could allow Republicans to flip a seat they lost to Democrats 2 years ago. Now, keep in mind, the issue here is this election and the timing of the election. And this was one of the issues that those judges weighed when they talked about in their particular ruling. Now, so Clarence Thomas is assigned to this area. And so what he did was go to my iPad. This is from the SCOTUS Wire. Justice Clarence Thomas declines to immediately restore Alabama's 2023 congressional map, but orders VRA plaintiffs to respond to Alabama's request by Monday, June 1st at 4 p.m. Alabama requested a ruling from the court by 10 a.m. on June 1st or as soon as possible thereafter. And so that is what is going on. And so you see right here a response to application. Now, Clarence Thomas is different Supreme Court justices are over different parts of the country. You'll see right here. And so Clarence Thomas, he handles emergency motions for the 11th Circuit, which covers Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. And so this is what is going on here. And so the battle continues in this GOP war on Black America. Robert Patillo, civil rights attorney with the Patillo Law Firm out of Atlanta. Dr. Avis Jones DeWeaver, host of the Fearless Politics podcast, National Harbor, Maryland. Andrew Clark, managing partner of District Legal Group out of D.C. Glad to have all three of y'all here. Robert, I want to start with you. It was interesting reading this ruling from these justices, where they said they took the Louisiana versus Calais decision, walked through it, and they said, well, the thing that they laid out, Alabama did that very thing, but how they discriminated against black voters. Now, you see how Alabama said, well, why do we have to cater to them over other groups? And the reality is that what the Supreme Court has now done, they've said that the views and perspective of white voters is frankly more important than African Americans and Latinos.
I think what we're seeing right now is what the battle lines for both 2026 and 2028 are going to have to be. We can remember all the way back to Shelby v. Holder. The Supreme Court laid out then that we have to pass a new Voting Rights Act, one that is updated from the 1960s, one that fits the narratives and the issues, the demographics that exist now, not the ones that existed in 1965. That's the challenge they laid before us back then, and that's the challenge that lays before us now. And I think that this fall, if you want to have the type of turnout numbers we're going to need to flip the Congress and to flip the United States Senate, if you're going to have the turnout numbers we're going to need in 2028 in order to win back the White House and have a filibuster-proof majority to push through a real agenda, we have to be campaigning on a new Voting Rights Act. We have to take every one of these decisions and put them into the text of each. We need to pass something that's durable. So we're not going by Chevron doctrine, where we're going by agency standard, where we're not piecing together a patchwork of judicial decisions over the course of a half century. We need something new. We need it innovative. We need it to be comprehensive. And we need it to be strong enough that the next MAGA presidency in the next 10 or 20 years won't be able to simply come right behind it and push it out the way again. We now see what the battle lines are going forward. The demographics of America cannot be reversed. And what they are doing is creating the legal precedents and creating the legislative backing that they need to ensure that they can have minority rule long after they are no longer a demographic majority within the nation. So we can either get up, understand that the fight is before us right now, and be ready to campaign on this, to motivate young black men on this issue, to go into every community around the country and let them know this is not hyperbole. They are taking your right to vote away. They are taking your representation away. No representation, no vote, no hope, no future. That's something the Reverend Jacks will probably have us campaigning on right now, but that has to be the fight going forward. The urgency is immediately. The urgency is now.
It is, this court, Andrew, is all over the place. In December, they say, oh, no, we really can't interfere in what's happening in Texas because the primary is in March. It's just too close. And then they allow Louisiana the week after a ruling to go ahead and halt an election. Same thing with Alabama. I mean, it's like, what the hell are we doing here?
Yeah, and since 2025, you see Texas, Missouri, North Carolina, Ohio, California, and Utah being able to do this redistricting and change their maps. But when you look at other states that are more Democratic-led, we look at New York, Maryland, South Carolina, Indiana, Arkansas, Wisconsin, we look at these states and they're not able to do it. And what we're really going to be seeing, Roland, is a shift. When we go to 2028, we're going to be seeing an issue where we're not only losing votes in these different districts, but people are going to be so fed up with the voting system that I'm afraid that people are just going to feel like they shouldn't vote. And that is not something that should be happening. Just like my colleague said, we should be igniting the Democratic base and also black males and black females to go out and vote. That's the only way that we're going to win in 2028. But when you look at these battleground states that are redrawing their districts to take away Congress members, to take away Democratic Congress members, we're going to see a huge issue, not only in 2026, but when we go into 2028, where we're going to see the biggest race in our lifetime.
You're not going to ignite voters unless you have politicians with an agenda to actually do that. And so there can't just be this automatic assumption that you're going to have black folks who are going to be registering like crazy. Avis, what has to happen, in my estimation, is that you have to truly walk people through and explain what the consequences are. And one of the things that I've tried to do on this show is to say this is not just about an individual. It's not just about a black politician. It's what that person is able to do while they are there. You got these people who run around, they say, oh my God, all these black politicians, they're awful, they're not doing anything. Well, that's a lie. And the end result of this is going to be the loss of billions of dollars that actually come to our communities. Your nonprofits, your other groups, your ability to have folk who interact and with black-owned businesses, all of those different things, they will all be impacted when you lose representation, Avis.
Absolutely. And they've already been impacted to a great deal. I mean, we already know that we have a historically high unemployment rates in the Black community, similar to what we saw under the pandemic. We are seeing now we have a workforce that has about 600,000 Black women detached from it. We know that we have Black businesses that have literally lost hundreds of millions of dollars due to the rollback with government contracting and DEI. And so we've already seen those impacts. And now we're seeing what's happened with the Supreme Court. I think it is very clear that we need to, as you mentioned, connect the dots between the impacts that we are seeing right now and the need to vote. Like, this happens as a result of the true fact that elections have consequences. And when Donald Trump stood his behind up in that pulpit, I don't even remember how many years ago when he was like running for president the very first time, saying to Black people, what do you have to lose? I guess we now see what we have to lose. And so when we are pushing for what we need to do next, I completely agree with what's been said here. We need to make sure that this is part of the agenda. We do need the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. We do need legislation around really reimagining what the Supreme Court looks like. We need Supreme Court reform. There are major changes that we need to do, not minor tweaks to the side when there is Democratic power. And so I do take one little bit of solace and optimism in mind when I look at what's happened so far with early voting. You had record turnouts in Georgia and in South Carolina when it comes to early voting. So I do think the Black community is getting the message. I do think we are showing up in force, and what we need to do is keep that momentum not only through the midterms, but all the way up to and including the next presidential election and beyond.
Now, what's happening in Florida, a district judge has refused to block the congressional map there, wiping out 4 seats from Democrats. This is the political story. The decision by Circuit Judge Joshua Hawks, appointed to the bench by Governor Ron DeSantis, doesn't end the legal battle, but it greatly increases the likelihood that the map will be in place for the 2026 midterms while the underlying challenge continues. Now, what's crazy is, Robert, he went out of his way to not speak to the law in Florida that's against mid-decade redistricting. So he tried to say, oh no, by making these changes, it's too close to the election, it's going to be the impact. I'm sorry, dude, does it violate the law they passed or not?
And you know, Roland, it's interesting because if you think about it, if this was in a movie, and we saw that the mad dictator had taken power, and with the snap of a finger, he was just eliminating his opposition's representation in government across the country, taking away 4 seats here, 1 seat here, consolidating districts, diluting the vote of his opposition and racial minorities, destroying jobs programs, economically devastating communities of color and minority groups. You know, we would think that would be a cheesy movie. Nobody's going to do that in real life. We would also think that people will be outraged by this. You would think that people will be marching in the streets and people will be actually like standing up and fighting about this. And the scary part is that even with these things happening directly in front of us, we're not seeing the type of outrage that this deserves. We're not seeing these moments of clarity where we as a society are simply saying that this is exactly what was going on in Germany at one point in time. This is what was going on in the South in the 1860s. This is what goes on right before something very terrible to a democratic system takes place. And we are in the throes of this, as every single roadblock, every single check and balance is simply torn asunder. we need to realize that the fight is here and that we're the generation that's going to have to take this seriously. And the fact that we're not seeing that outrage means that all of us have to work harder to bubble this up, to ensure that everyone is speaking about it, that it's on the lips of everyone, that they understand that it's not just gas prices, but it's the destruction of the democracy that we live in that is at stake. And once people understand that, that is when we're going to start seeing people not just turning out to vote, but really demanding change at every single level of government, as Ava said, the type of fundamental change that will change the system that we exist in, not simply the captain of the ship that's driving forward.
But Andrew, we also have to recognize, and I have said this, whether it's black men or black women, but definitely black men, the amount of massive disinformation that has been going on is astounding. I've heard, Terrence Woodbury's talked about these focus groups and the stuff that he hears that are just flat out lies. And so we have to recognize that we are in a massive information battle. And when you've got mainstream media, when you've got these white outlets that are not, I don't know what the hell they're doing, when you've got black radio that's not doing enough, we can't even afford even a slip up when it comes to factually incorrect information, because it is running rampant in our community, and it's just false information. And so we've got to be fighting this war every single day. It's literally a war that we are in.
Yeah, and this is not something that just happens all of a sudden. If you think back to last year when black males got a majority of the blame for the election of Donald Trump, we started seeing a lot of a divide within our own community, especially when black males saying that they support Donald Trump. And then we have social media, which feeds certain algorithms based on the type of content that you like. So we may not even be in an algorithm that's feeding misinformation, so we may not even ever see the misinformation, right? And then we go to mainstream media and how they've been castrated into the type of information that they're being able to feed to the public. So then we have you, Roland. And if someone's not in your algorithm and knows that you tell the truth and that you speak up and that you speak the facts, they're never going to hear the correct information. So the best way to counter it is to go out and march, right? How you bring attention? How do you bring eyes? You go out and march, you go out and demonstrate, because the news is going to have to pick that up, right? The internet picks that up, and you get into and break into some of these algorithms that have prevented black males from being able to get the correct information. And your show, Roland, is right on top of that, and being able to put out those clips of the real information and being able to get our black brothers back on the right track.
See, Avis, the thing the mistake that people make, and trust me, I've had to deal with this here, with these yahoos yelling, you're just, you're Democratic shield. And I go, no, we're going to deal with facts. We're going to deal with facts. And when I see some of these, items pop up on Instagram, or I comment, people like, Roland got time today. But you have to, because these people are lying, Avis. They are literally lying. The stuff that they are making up every day is insane. And it's like, that's a lie. That's a lie. That's a lie. That's a lie. And we got to call it.
We have to. And here's the thing. I want us to understand as Black people that this is not haphazard. This is large invested amounts of money have been used to target us with misinformation. This is not new. They are not new to this. They are true to this. We know specifically from the very first Trump campaign, for example, it came out later about all of the Russian bots that had been funded in order to target specifically the Black community. Those bot farms haven't gone away. They've been sort of helped and augmented by Nigerian bots, American folk. This is something, quite frankly, that the right has invested millions and millions and millions of dollars in for years. And what I'm super frustrated about is that I don't see the left investing anywhere near that amount of money, time, or attention into this countering disinformation, and especially not disinformation targeting Black folk. And so it's going to take that level of investment, and it's going to take a broad ecosystem and echo chamber in order to counter disinformation and to make sure that our community has access to quality information. That's what it's going to take.
Look, I'm just tell you straight up. All of that talk after the 2024 election about, oh my goodness, how the right wing, podcasters and all those outlets and what they did, and how progressives need to invest, need to do those things. All those different things sounds great. Did it happen? No. I can tell you. I can tell you right now, flat out, in terms of donations, in terms of sponsorships, in terms of any of that sort of stuff, from these major progressive donors, zero to this platform. Zero.
It's frustrating. It's ridiculous.
Zero. And this is, and listen, I walk people through this, and I say this stuff all the time, and it's not being arrogant, it's not being anything else. It's just being very clear when you look at the numbers. When you look at the numbers, if you look at the top podcast on YouTube, the chart gets released every single week, and when we pull that chart up, look, these are the weekly top podcasts, and this is not views. This is watch hours. That's important because you can have a lot of views, but people are not actually watching for a long period of time. So when you look at this list right here, and you say May 18th to 24th, in the reality, you see Joe Rogan 1, Midas Touch is number 2. Well, you see Kill Tony, right winger, Sean Ryan, right winger, Candace Owens, right winger. When you start looking at a lot of these, Nightcap, that's Shannon and Ocho, sports. Tucker Carlson, right winger. Theo Vaughn, right winger. When you start, so you look at from a Black standpoint, in the top 20, the 2 are entertainment and sports. I want people to understand. So when you start going to the next one, and you start, looking here, and you see, PBD, right wing, you start listening. Okay, the next Black one is Gil's Arena, sports. When you keep going, okay, you got Start, Neil deGrasse Tyson, science, 5:20 in the morning podcast. Love Jeff Teague and those guys, that's great. 39, sports. 85 South, number 41, sports. Now you see, Sam Cedar on the progressive side, Young Turks progressive side. When you see Adam Mockler, then you see this Black conservative, and so then when you keep going, then you'll see you'll keep going, and you'll see Don Lemon is in here, but what does Don cover? That is a lot different than what we cover. Bulwark. And you go David Packman, and you keep going, and you keep going. Tim Cass, right winger, Brian Tyler Cohen, progressive, if you will. When you keep going down here, looking at these numbers, and then Clough at 520 podcast, same thing. Look, we're at number 92. We're the only Black news and information in the top 100. There's nobody else. There's nobody else in the top 100. And people have to understand when you start talking about, again, information and how we are receiving it, and I got, and we start talking about, who's watching, who's reading, we have to be encouraging and pushing what I call credible information. And I think part of the problem that we're dealing with is that we have on our promo, Jeff Carr says, Black people bring your eyeballs home. We got to be honest about what we're watching and what we're consuming. And listen, I'll be straight up. I've spent no time discussing the Kevin Hart roast on this show. Y'all can go talk about that other stuff. I have spent zero time and energy on whether Cheyenne Bryant is a doctor or not. I'm not wasting any time or energy on that. And that's because if I spent time on that stuff, then we're taking away from the real substantive things that we have to talk about. And I'm just going to show you the last 28 days. This is the breakdown in terms of age. With this, that was interesting to me at 13, 17. So 13 to 17, 1.3% of our audience. This is just on YouTube, not Facebook, not the other platforms. 18 to 24, 0.6%. 25 to 34, 3.8%. 35 to 44 is 9.3%. 45 to 54 is 18.5%. 55 to 64, 29.4%. 65 plus, 37.2%. So the reality is this here. When you look at the numbers, when you look at who's actually watching, it's people 45 plus. These are people who are consuming news. Now, hey, we're not sitting here trying to make it sexy. I'm not like these sports shows where I've got, a cute, sexy woman sitting in the middle, and so she's there as eye candy as we sort of bandy about topics, as you see on all of these sports shows, okay? But what we have to understand, and I have been saying this for a long time, that what we are dealing with in our community, we are literally in information deserts. If we talk about food deserts, we have information deserts. As Black people, we are inundated with bullshit. We are inundated with sports and gossip and reality shows and entertainment and fashion and beauty. And you know what? I get it, what people want to talk about. But here's what I know. The very same people, when they start questioning why they're getting screwed over student loans, when they start questioning food benefits, when they start talking about housing, affordability, gas prices, I can go on and on and on. I'm sitting there going, well, maybe you don't know what's going on because you're watching and listening to a lot of bullshit. Maybe you don't understand what's going on. And let me tell you something right now. You may need the audience to understand this here. The right wing, dominating digital media. We know where they're getting their information from. Oh, they're watching Tucker Carlson, Ben Shapiro, Megyn Kelly. They're watching Rogan, Theo Vaughn. We could go on and on and on. And I'm telling you right now, I need our people to understand, if you are getting your information from non-journalistic people on TikTok and Instagram, and you're not getting actual facts, that explains why we have people who are just spouting nonsense. And see, when I call people out, man, why you have to call so-and-so out? Because even when you make a basic mistake, the lie gets amplified in social. And it happens. And we run around when a celebrity or a sports person throws out some BS and we fall for it, we're now in that information desert. So if we believe that we need to get rid of food deserts, we need to stop having information deserts. And I'm telling you, we need trusted voices every single day, and not 4 days a week, 3 days a week, 2 days a week, 1 day a week, because we are being targeted every single day. And we better understand the battle that we are in. One of the issues when we talk about in terms of this information battle, and again, I keep telling y'all, it's real. We are seeing it every single day. It's what's happening and how we are being attacked, and we don't even realize it. How this current administration is so anti-Black, and they have been targeting Black people. And so you got lots of people out here. It's amazing, all these people, oh man, Trump ain't that bad and my pocket's gonna be full. Don't even realize, and I've been telling y'all since last year, that there's an effort to completely defund Black America. They are targeting everything. They're targeting politics, they're targeting education, they're targeting economics, they're targeting everything, including our health. Now check this out. Federal lawmakers have almost completely removed the word black from a package of bills that have long been viewed as Congress's main vehicle to address the Black maternal health crisis. Let me say it again. They're removing black to supposedly attack Black maternal health crisis. This change could hinder efforts to highlight racial disparities and may affect future policy initiatives aimed at improving maternal health outcomes for Black women. The shift comes as growing pressure and scrutiny around race-conscious policymaking and DEI initiatives nationwide. Jennifer Driver is a Senior Director of Reproductive Freedom and Health Equity, and she joins us now. And so, Jennifer, glad to have you here. So this is, it's sort of insane. So MAGA wants to say, no discussions about racial inequity, don't want to hear it, don't bring it up. Well, if that's the case, how then do you know what problem to attack if you remove race, because to act as if race is not a factor is asinine?
That's exactly right. You know, the controversy around this really centered during April, during Black Maternal Health Week, when the federal Momnibus package was reintroduced. And what we noticed was the word Black was removed from the title and largely stripped from the legislative that had been previously called the Black Maternal Health Momnibus Act. And so it was led by Representative Lauren Underwood, the primary lead sponsor and co-chair of the Congressional Black Maternal Health Caucus, Representative Alma Adams, the co-founder of the Black Maternal Health Caucus, and Senator Cory Booker on the Senate side, who was the previous version package. And so, you know, we had seen over the years where Black had kind of, the language had been changed. But this year was really striking with the full removal of the title Black from the title of the package and the legislative language. And as you said, if you don't name it, you can't change it.
Now, explain to people the amount of money that we've lost since Trump got in. Doge comes in. Like, I don't think people really understand that complete wipeout. And we know USAID and how that's impacted Ebola and things like that in other countries. But they wiped out, and they have hindered the work of numerous nonprofits in this health education space.
I think that's right. I mean, not only have they wiped out at the federal government, right? So they've erased the people who were the public health scientists that were studying Black maternal health. They defunded the researchers who were really looking to change how we address the maternal mortality crisis in this country. So across the federal government, you saw just droves of researchers, epidemiologists, scholars who were really committed to addressing Black maternal health. But not only across the federal government, we've seen it in nonprofit organizations too. We have seen where the Trump administration has targeted organizations that are primarily focused on addressing Black health. We have seen our funding has been removed or gutted. If we got federal funding, that funding was cut or removed. There was a lot of layoffs, decades and decades of research and science just all wiped out with a swipe of what Trump has done. And what also happened was that foundations who were funding and committed, right? So during 2020, all the these funders that wanted to come and say that they were pro-Black and stand up, they actually walked away as well. And so you saw them backtracking and say, oh, no, we can't say Black, or actually, we can't say that. And so the funding that was supporting a lot of these nonprofits that were really addressing the maternal health crisis, that funding was gutted.
So the 19th did a story, and they talked to Congresswoman Lauren Underwood. And the spokesperson said this. The spokesperson for Underwood said removing the word Black from most of the legislation in 2023 was due to technical edits related to the Kira Johnson Act, a bill in the Momnibus package named after a black woman who died in 2016 in the hours after childbirth. The legislation encourages investments in community-based organizations that support mothers. Though it has not been enacted, aspects of the bill have been implemented through congressional funding directed to the Office of Minority Health under the Department of Health and Human Services. These appropriations, first approved under the Biden administration, total more than $30 million to date. So Underwood spokesperson said removing the word black in 2023 aligned the legislative text with language used by the Office of Minority Health to avoid future regulatory hiccups under existing regulations. But here's the thing. What we also know is that money that was allocated by Congress under Biden-Harris, Trump and his cronies have been slashing.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. You know, the funding has been slashed. And so I think it's kind of disingenuous to say that all of this money is going to community-based organizations when the reality is a lot of that funding was gutted and cut. And so, and, you know, that number is a drop in the bucket of actually what is needed to address this crisis.
Going back to the story on the 19th, it said some of the references to black people were replaced with demographic groups with elevated rates of maternal mortality, severe maternal morbidity, maternal health disparities, and other adverse perinatal or childbirth outcomes. The latest bill also links to a formal definition for racial and ethnic minority groups that includes black people. Quote, the definitions in the bill are designed to make sure that the money can get to the communities that need it, Underwood told the 19th, who emphasized the substance of the bill has not changed and has been expanded to encourage more research funding. What do you say?
So one of the most important things about the Momnibus is that it framed maternal mortality not simply as individual healthcare issue, but as a structural and racial issue. The bill recognized that outcomes are shaped by systemic racism, access to care, provider bias, environmental exposures, criminalization, and economic inequality. So not just personal behavior. And so, you know, this idea that it's doing all of these things, but you can't actually say the word black and who is most at risk. We know that black women are 3 times more likely to die from a pregnancy-related complication, and a significant number of those deaths are preventable. About 84% of the deaths are actually preventable. And so, you know, I think when you start removing the word black from these legislation, it's not simply symbolic or branding. In public health and policymaking, naming a population experiencing harms and how problems are measured, funded, and implemented, and how policy is defended matters, right? And so when we're not able to actually clearly name, you can't evaluate the outcomes. You can't ask questions like, are Black maternal mortality rates declining? Are hospitals reducing racial disparities in outcomes? Are Black patients reporting better care? And so, you know, we've done this kind of broad strokes approach to this bill while erasing the very nature of what the bill originally, or the package originally, was dedicated to do.
This also is interesting here. The article says that obviously Vice President Kamala Harris, President Biden were vocal supporters of Black maternal health policies. But since then, and remember earlier in the article, they said that this money was being delivered through the Office of Minority Health. Well, then it says, but since then, Donald Trump has targeted the Office of Minority Health for elimination amid efforts aimed at dismantling diversity, equity, and inclusion. So they're touting the money's going through, but they want to get rid of this very office.
This administration has targeted Black people from the beginning, right? The Office of Minority Health, it is being gutted. The people that were working there, the access that we had is eroded. And so this idea that we're getting all this funding, that it's still being prioritized, is just flat out wrong, right? It's not happening. And so while there are still folks on the there that are trying to fight through, the scale in which we had previously had is not the same. And that actually needs to be acknowledged. And so what you expect is that Congress would actually grow a backbone and support and establish that Black health matters and that we need to prioritize Black women in this moment. All
right, then. Jennifer, we surely appreciate it. If people want to get more information, how do they reach you?
Sure. I am at the State Innovation Exchange. You can reach out to us at stateinnovationexchange.org.
All right. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we come back. We're going to talk about Pope Leo apologizing for slavery and the Catholic Church involvements. But before I go to break, folks, let me be real with y'all. If you are on Medicare or about to be, the system is not set up to work for you. Too much fine print, too many plans, and too many people making money off of your confusion. And look, we're used to this. We're no stranger to systems that don't have our best interests at heart. But we don't have to accept it when it comes to Medicare. That's why I'm telling you about Chapter. Their advisors are independent and honest. In fact, they're the only Medicare advisors that compare every plan nationwide. And they're focused on one thing, what actually works for you. If there's a better plan out there, they'll find it. If you're already in the right one, they'll tell you that as well. No games. Just last year, people who switched with Chapter saved an average of $1,100. It's 20 minutes with a real person, completely free. So give Chapter a call, 724-264-8281, 724-264-8281, and connect with someone you can trust. I'll be right back.
They've been trying to erase black political power since Reconstruction. Now the Supreme Court is helping them finish the job. First came Shelby County versus Holder in 2013, the ruling that gutted the Voting Rights Act. Then came Brnovich in 2021, another ruling, another piece torn away. Now comes Calais, the case civil rights leaders warned could cripple the last major federal protection against racial vote dilution. And within days, Tennessee eliminated its only majority black congressional district. Louisiana, South Carolina, Alabama. The same strategy is spreading across the South. The old Jim Crow used poll taxes and literacy tests. The new Jim Crow uses gerrymandered maps, voter roll purges, polling place closures, and court rulings that make black communities politically invisible. 1965 was Freedom Summer. This is Freedom Summer 2.0, because they are still trying to erase black political power, and we will not bow.
My name is Bill Duke, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Folks, on Monday, Pope Leo apologized for the Catholic Church's complicit involvement in the slave trade. The Associated Press posted this story where they said Pope Leo made a historic apology for the Holy See's role in legitimizing slavery and having failed to condemn it for centuries, calling the Vatican's record a, quote, wound in Christian memory. Past popes have apologized for Christians' involvement in the transatlantic slave trade, but no pope has ever publicly acknowledged, much less apologized for, the role that past popes played in giving European sovereigns explicit authority to subjugate and enslave, quote, infidels. That's right. The history's first U.S.-born pope, whose family includes both enslaved people and slave owners. Yeah, brother. Delivered the apology in his first encyclical, Magnificat Humanitas, Magnificent Humanity, which was released on Monday. It's a sweeping manifesto where he addressed this issue of this, but also artificial intelligence. And see, this is where media comes into play, Avis. So many media outlets were fixated on what the Pope had to say about AI and not the slavery apology.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And to the degree that they do acknowledge it, it's minimized. It's rarely even mentioned at all. It's 99% of the segment is on the AI aspect. And I think that happens, honestly, because we live in a nation that still to this very day does not want to face its history, does not want to face its past. And under an administration that has made its business to do as much as it can to destroy our history, it's a shame that the media, too, is complicit in ignoring reference to our history, even when it's part or should be part of a specific news cycle of the day. It just shows our cultural leanings towards minimizing our history and, to the extent that they can, trying to detract from it at every given opportunity.
But this is why, Andrew, and I keep saying this, why it matters to have other voices. When we are so dependent on white media, then they're going to be deciding what we hear and what we don't hear.
Yeah, because all they're looking at is the numbers, and the eyeballs right now are on AI. That's what everybody is talking about. How is AI going to take over the world? How robots are going to be able to do 95% of the jobs, right? So when you hear the Pope address that, the media thinks, okay, mainstream, we're just going to go ahead and talk about AI, because they feel like if they talk about the slavery issue, one, it's going to be way too controversial, right? They might catch some heat from the FCC for doing it, and that's going to how the president has really quashed any real opposition to anything that he's doing. This is exactly part of that. This is a huge deal. This is a huge deal. For years, the Catholic Church has refused to acknowledge their role in slavery and really indoctrinating and allowing slavery to occur, and for people to think that this is okay. And now this Pope, first American-born Pope, has stood up and said, we acknowledge the fact that we were involved and that we were an integral part in this, and we apologize for this. And now all of a sudden, it's not a big deal. It's not big news. And thank you again, Roland, for bringing our eyeballs and all of our attention to this very significant occurrence.
Robert, this is what the Pope said, quote, "It is impossible not to feel deep sorrow when contemplating the immense suffering and humiliation endured by so many in stark contrast to their immeasurable dignity as persons infinitely loved by the Lord. For this, in the name of the Church, I sincerely ask for pardon."
This is more important than I think people realize, because by the Pope doing this puts pressure on every Western government to apologize for the massacres that they have created, the genocides they have committed against people from the African continent. This will have to spread. The British will have to address this. The French will have to address it. The Dutch will have to address this. And most importantly, America will have to address its own history of the enslavement of Africans within this nation's borders, and the continued discrimination that reverberates with till this day. And I think to myself that a confession creates culpability, because by the new Pope, who, as we said, has both Black roots and Creole roots, as he makes this apology, well, then what's the next step after that? Well, then that becomes a place where you have to start having a conversation about reparations, not just from the U.S., but from all the colonial powers who executed a policy of mercantilism over the course of 500 years across the now developing world. They stripped mined. They stole everything down to the people and the rocks in the ground to build temples and to build the Louvre and castles and launch wars against each other for the better part of a millennia. That's what they did with the money they stole from the whole world. And it's about time, if we're going to start having these apologies. Thank you so much for the apology. I appreciate it. And now it's time to move on to the next step after the apology.
Well, this was...
we have to find a way to make ourselves even.
To your point, this is in the BBC article here. It said on Tuesday, Human Rights Watch said the Pope's apology marked an important step, but stressed apologies alone were not enough and that real reparative justice needed to go further. Religious institutions, along with states and corporations that benefited from slavery, should, quote, reckon seriously with their histories and take part in reparative efforts, the rights group added. Sound like they're saying the same thing you are, Robert?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the point, that if you look at what has happened in European history in particular, after wars took place, after atrocities took place, nations paid reparations to each other. It's not a word that was developed or created in our context. Iran right now is demanding war reparations for the United States for an unprovoked war of offense, and they're citing 19th century European rules of war. Like when we talk about the Geneva Convention, these are the rules that are put in place. So when you're talking about a group that has been taken captive, taken away from their homeland where they cannot be returned to, they received a material wrong against them as a nation of people. And so this isn't some sort of obtuse idea that's out there. This is something that is the logical next step after you have this apology from all the European nations. And this is deserved, and it's time for us to put some real pressure on this. And for me, I think if you really want to get African-American men interested in the next election and turning in those numbers, let's start having these conversations, not rooted in, brother man on the corner, but rooted in serious academic discussion about this and how it is rooted within the traditions of Western jurisprudence.
And just so folks know, Ghana next month is going to be hosting a 3-day conference, June 17th through the 19th. This is what this article says. Ghana will host a high-level conference on reparatory justice following the adoption of a landmark United Nations resolution on the transatlantic slave trade. Of course, the conference, it says right here from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the high-level Next Steps Conference is intended to sustain the momentum generated at the multilateral level by providing a dedicated platform for participating states, world leaders, experts, historians, jurists, and activists to deliberate on the next phase of the reparations agenda. The ministry noted that discussions at the conference will focus on translating the UN resolution into a concrete global framework for action. The conference to be held under the auspices of President John Dramani Mahama will also, who is also the African Union champion for reparations, will bring together heads of state, ministers, academics, and representatives of international organizations as part of the program. A Juneteenth commemoration will be held at the Christian Board Castle in Osu, a historic site linked to the transatlantic slave trade. Actually, yesterday I received an invitation to participate in this. I have not decided if I'm going to travel to Ghana to do so. A lot of things are happening. First of all, this is happening around the same time. Juneteenth is June 19th. The Obama Presidential Center is opening June 18th. Then you got June 19th stuff as well. And so, and then of course there are efforts being, voter registration efforts are supposed to be taking place that same weekend as well. So I'll let you know if I'm going to be hopping on that 14-hour flight to Ghana to cover this conference. Got to go to break. We come back, Roland Martin Unfiltered, more to break down, including last night's elections in Texas and some big losses. We'll tell you about that. Folks, if you want to support the work that we do, join our Bring the Funk fan club. Your support is critical to our success. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing on average $50 each a year. That's $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. If you can't give that, we certainly appreciate it. The people who are giving less, the people who are giving more. And so if you want to contribute to our cause as we are fighting the good fight, use Cash App. For Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here on the screen. If you're listening, go to blackstarnetwork.com. And of course, checks and money order, make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 2003 7-0196. PayPal's R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
Hey everybody, I'm T.D. Jakes, and I want to encourage you to watch Roland Martin Unfiltered It'll blow your mind.
Folks, big upsets last night in Texas. Republicans got exactly what they wanted when they forced two black members of the two CBC members to run against one another. You had Congressman Christian Menifee running against longtime Congressman Al Green. Menifee defeated Al Green. Of course, Green, the 78-year-old civil rights champion, was running for his 12th term in Washington. Menifee got 69.4% of the vote. Green got 30.6% of the vote. Now, keep in mind, those districts were redrawn. Green was in the 9th district. Then they redrew the district, moving him into the 18th district. And Menifee, this was, his fourth election? He was running since January of 2025. That the special election for that race. Then they had the runoff for the special election, because remember, Congressman Sylvester Turner died. He replaced Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who had died. So Menifee ran twice to win that seat. Well, then, that was just in January in the runoff. Then he had to run in the new, because of the new maps, so he ran in that primary, and then, of course, this runoff. So he's had 4 elections literally in 18 months. And so that was that particular race. In Dallas, you had a former Congressman, Colin Allred, who beat Congresswoman Julie Johnson for that seat. Now, in the U.S. Senate race, you have the most corrupt Attorney General in America, Ken Paxton, who beat incumbent John Cornyn. Paxton got the endorsement of Donald Trump. This race ends a bitter and expensive primary that divided the party. And Cornyn has already pledged he's going to support Paxton. Republican Party, they've already began deleting a lot of folks, their tweets and attack ads against Ken Paxton, such as this one dealing with crime.
This is the sound of Texas. And this is how it sounds under Ken Paxton.
Shots fired! Shots fired!
So, which Texas do you want to hear?
So, the attacks have already begun. Go to my iPad. They've been attacking. Look at this. Ari Fleischer, Talarico in a Texas shirt. The shirt doesn't fit him. They've been whining about his stance, his shirt, his positions all day because they're desperately to try to change the tone and tenor. The reality is Republicans were attacking Paxton left and right. They were lining up behind John Cornyn, but he did not prevail. Now, of course, Andrew, he's going to face off. And listen, it's going to be tough for Talarico to win, but Ken Paxton is so corrupt. Listen, he might have a shot unless these idiot Republicans in Texas just say, hell, we don't care about a man who's corrupt. We don't care about somebody who's cheated numerous times on his wife. What the hell? We want him out as our U.S. Senator.
Yeah, and what you saw even with the race with Al Green, the amount of money being spent in Texas right now is just astounding. I looking at the numbers, I just can't believe the millions of dollars being spent just in primary races. So I can't imagine the amount of money that's going to be spent in the general election. And this goes back to what you were saying about the misinformation, because again, these algorithms are so dangerous that we have no idea what certain segments of voters in Texas are being fed, what kind of information that they're being fed. So that's when you get a result of an election from 69% that you think, that this candidate has absolutely no shot. So I think that the amount of money that's being spent has to be counteracted by people like you, Roland, who are every single day feeding the truth. There has to be a trusted source for people to go to closer to the election to know what is true and what is not. Because as we know, within a month of the election, there are going to be so many different attack ads. And at this point, I feel like in Texas, they're just going to say whatever that they need to say to get you to vote for their candidate.
Well, y'all, it gets better. Republicans all day, Avis, have been running all of these post-social media attacking Talarico. But let's not forget when the National Republican Senatorial Committee released this statement when Ken Paxton's wife, Angela, filed for divorce. This is the National Republican Senatorial Committee, the same group that now is like, hey, he's a great guy. What Ken Paxton has put his family through is truly repulsive and disgusting. No one should have to endure what Angela Paxton has, and we pray for her as she chooses to stand up for herself and her family during this difficult time, said NRSC Communications Director Joanna Rodriguez. Background: Angela Paxton's divorce petition accuses Ken Paxton of adultery and says the couple stopped living together in June of 2024. Paxton's former chief of staff testified that Paxton confessed to her and other staff members he was having an affair with his mistress, Laura Olson. Impeachment articles in the Texas legislature allege Paxton used the alias Dave P. for a fake Uber account he used to secretly see his mistress. Paxton was also accused of using secret emails and burner phones to try and cover his tracks. Paxton allegedly used his pal, Nate Paul, who was recently convicted of bank fraud, to help hide his affair and provide his mistress with employment in Austin so that Paxton could be closer to her. 20 articles of impeachment were filed against Paxton in the Texas legislature over alleged bribery, abuse of power, and obstruction of justice. Paxton was indicted on security fraud charges that were later dropped after he paid $300,000 in restitution and completed community service. Paxton refused to disclose multiple out-of-state properties in his 2023 financial disclosure, including a $1.6 million luxury hideaway. And Avis, that was the Republicans' press release.
Yeah, because they really did not want the outcome that happened yesterday with that primary. I think they're still probably pissed at Trump for his last-minute endorsement of this crook. But, you know, birds of a feather flock together. One thing that we can see from the Republican and specifically the Trump loyalists is clearly adultery is not a deal breaker for them. You know, criminal behavior is not a deal breaker for them. This is something that they have voted for knowingly when it comes to Trump. So when this guy does it, breaking up two homes simultaneously, not only leading to the divorce from his wife, but leading to the divorce with the mistress, who is the mother of 7 children, her marriage blew up too. So he not only led to the demise of 2 marriages, he also engaged in behavior. And let me just say, for you to be impeached as a Republican by Republicans in Texas, you are doing some stuff, okay? So the level of, you know, just malfeasance is tremendous. If this is enough to help the Democrats finally break the 30-year losing streak when it comes to a Senate seat in Texas, that would be wonderful. But I'm still saying that with a big if, because we do know that it's a huge chunk of the Republican electorate that though they talk the talk about family values, they really don't give a damn when it comes to who they vote for.
And this here was a tweet, Robert, from Team Talarico. This is Ken Paxton's mugshot. He was indicted on 3 felony counts for investment fraud. He was reported to the FBI by his own staff for bribery. He was impeached by his own party for corruption. Now he's a Republican nominee for U.S. Senate in Texas. Together we will stop him.
A couple things. One, with the affair, and this goes up to anybody who's currently a side piece in a relationship. If they're not doing all that stuff that he was doing, he ain't never going to leave his wife for you. I mean, that is how you're supposed to, if you're not getting treated like that as a side piece, as what Kim Paxton was doing, you know, you got to reevaluate the relationship that you're in with this other married person. Secondarily, 7 kids with 1 husband, and then left him for a senator who blew up his family and was doing all that stuff, had a secret Uber account, burner phones and all that. Don't never send a woman like that my way. Whatever I don't want nothing like that anywhere near me for any reason. I'm just waiting for the Tubi movie that tells us exactly what happened in the situation. But look, the only corollary I could find to this was the election of Herschel Walker versus Raphael Warnock, where Republicans, just because Donald Trump said to, nominated somebody who was mentally ill, politically corrupt, abusive towards women, with just a terrible and disgusting past. And they made that their nominee. And that was able to push Raphael Warnock over the edge. Great candidate in and of himself. He's my pastor at Ebenezer. But having a candidate of that nature is exactly what is necessary to get someone like Talarico elected, who is a moderate. The biggest attack they've had against him so far is claiming that he's a vegan. They're trying to claim he had a potato breakfast taco, and somehow that makes him less manly. Kim Paxton talked about that during his acceptance speech earlier this week. So I think Democrats are in a great position as more and more information and more allegations come out. We're going to see more money spent on this election than some presidential elections have been seeing. Upwards of $500 million is going to have to be spent by the Republicans to attempt to defend this seat that won't be going to fighting Ossoff, that won't be going to North Carolina, that won't be going to Maine. Donald Trump has cut off his nose to spite his face just in order to get his person across the line and punish any non-loyal rhinos who don't want to get on board with the Republican agenda, and this is exactly what Democrats need to stem the tide.
You talk about what these folks are focusing on, and I've seen some stupid stuff. And I was on Twitter today, and I showed you that Ari Fleischer tweet complaining about, the shirt size. Mary Catherine Ham posted this thing on Twitter, which was like really stupid, and it was, and she was, retweeted by Eric Erickson. So this is it. The Democrats posted this here, a photo of Talarico, fired up, ready to go. It's time to take back Texas. And then Mary Catherine Ham goes, I've never seen a stance that says take back Texas less than this one. Well, the other stance could be when Ken Paxton's office gives a man no jail time for raping a boy for 3 years. Mary Catherine, how about that stance? Eric Erickson, you retweeted this. How about that stance? How about how corrupt he is? How about him telling he was going to imprison teachers who don't hang the 10 Commandments in their schools when he doesn't follow them? I mean, we can go on and on and on. I just sit here and look at these guys, and I'm like, Ken Paxton is corrupt. I mean, just his own staff were the whistleblowers against him. Now, when your own people say you're awful, man, you suck. Now, speaking of sucking, Megyn Kelly. Oh my God, these white women really crack me up. How they voted for Trump, they knew who he was, knew he was racist and sexist, and all of that. Yet they just continue the stupidity. So this is what she had to say on this podcast with these two black idiots.
Trump has cheated on every wife he's had. He met Marla Maples while he was still married to the mother of his children, Ivana. Right. It was all over the New York papers. I'm from New York, upstate New York, but I was in New York when this all went down the city, and he was like being touted, like he was proud of the affair. It was all over the papers. Mm-hmm. So, and by the way, Ivana, his first wife, accused him of raping her. That she alleged in her first book that he was so angry over the hair transplant he got that she made him get. It was so painful that he raped her. And she later retracted that when he ran for president, but that stood on the books for some time. I don't know whether that's true or not. I'm just saying, clearly not a great relationship there. Right. And then he winds up with Melania, and if you think Trump's been faithful to Melania, okay, that's great. You got bigger issues than I can solve here. Right. But so the nerve, nerve to act, for him to be judging somebody else's marriage or love relationships or choices, it just shows you he's got chutzpah, I guess is the word for it, beyond. and it was really inappropriate. And it was wrong. It was what he said was wrong on many levels.
But you voted for him. I mean, it's amazing how all of a sudden they're getting religion, Robert. All of a sudden, no, they see the handwriting on the wall. They see the ass kicking that is awaiting Donald Trump and MAGA in November. And so all of a sudden, they just want to dress this thing up as, see, no, I was right there. No, Megyn, you were hardcore riding Trump's lap with MAGA.
They're right at that point where a lot of Germans were in 1944 when they started saying they were just following orders, when they saw that the walls were closed again. Look, Donald Trump is now polling in the 30s. The only reason he's polling in the 30s is because the Republican base, that MAGA base, he is still upwards of 90% support, meaning that in the rest of the American electorate, Donald Trump has between 15 and 20% support, just mathematically, in order for the numbers to work out that way. They understand that any candidate who does not have that Trump imprimatur at this point can't get out of a primary, but at the same time, that same person cannot win a general election. We talk about Ken Paxton. That would be the worst plausible idea if you want to maintain a swing state Senate seat. If you look at getting rid of Thomas Massey for no apparent reason, getting rid of an experienced senator like Cassidy, who has proven he can win in that state, who has proven he can fundraise. This is Nero's madness. I mean, this is the Megabolus towards the end of the Roman Empire. This is hardcore crazy, and we're starting to see these MAGA influencers understanding that they're going to have a life after Trump at some point in the next 2 years. And more, they're coming out and trying to get ahead of the game, saying that I was somebody who criticized him at the time. I was a supporter of Trump term one. I wasn't here for the Make Israel Great Again movement. I wasn't here for the Trump 2.0, as they're calling it, because even Marjorie Taylor Greene is declaring that MAGA is dead and has been killed by Trump. And this is what we're going to see more so going into this fall election. More and more candidates coming out and saying, I'm a traditional Reagan Republican, and rejecting this MAGA movement.
Oh, it gets better, Avis. Oh, it gets better. Here's more from whiny-ass Megyn.
I didn't expect the corruption to be quite as, widespread as it's been, and like the self-dealing and the lining of his and his family's pockets. Like, that's been a little shocking.
Talking
and
billions
I just
of dollars.
didn't expect Trump to be so disrespectful of his base.
Right. Well, you know what, Megyn? I got to push back a little bit because Trump didn't take a salary while he's president. So I don't know what you're talking about.
Right. I mean, you look at like across the board of the Trump family, and I've never seen a family get so rich off of a presidency.
Right.
And it happened at the same time as we now have a Supreme Court ruling that basically says any official act he takes while in the White House is protected.
Right.
And those two things are, seem to be giving him some sort of a hall pass that could very much get abused. I don't want to, say he's crossed the line legally because I actually haven't taken a close look at that. But, he's done a lot that pushes it right up to the line. And I just don't think we want our presidents or their families getting rich off of the presidency. And I really want to know more about all these trades that are happening on Iran right before he makes the announcements. Like, this is not the way it's supposed to be. Even one of those would have caused a massive scandal 12, 13 years ago. We shouldn't be so far afield that like these obvious ethical questions get skirted past with just.
Well, folks like you excuse it because you're in the cult. I mean, who the hell does she think she's fooling, Avis? I mean, all of them. They've all given him a pass. She spoke at his rallies. She knew his ass was corrupt. She knew that his children were corrupt. Yes, she wanted it. Ari Fleischer as well. Eric Erickson as well. I don't want to hear any of these people go, oh my God, this is crazy. Anytime Geraldo tweets, I'm like, Geraldo, shut the fuck up.
You're right. And it's a whole rack of them. Add to that list the Tucker Carlsons of the world. Add to that list Candace Owens. Add to that list crazy ass Alex Jones. I mean, it's really wild to see all of these, loud Trump supporters. Hell, even Joe Rogan. Add to all of these people to that list who were all gung-ho on the Trump train, all up to and through the election. And now all of a sudden they're clutching their collective pearls as if there was no indication that any of this could have happened. Oh yeah, there was plenty of indication. But I will have to say, I believe that some of them, maybe not Megan, but I believe that some of them, perhaps like a Tucker Carlson, maybe even like a Candace Owens, have some sort of presidential aspirations. And what they are doing right now, and Marjorie Taylor Greene as well, what they're doing right now is they are positioning themselves to be the real America First candidate, to be the real candidate that would do what he said he was going to do, but he hasn't done because he has not put America first. And that's one thing that I believe that the Democrats really need to be wary of, and they need to be very strategic about that moving forward, because the reality is when we're thinking to the next presidential election, they can't just think just because this guy was a colossal failure and they will likely do well in the midterms, that the next presidential election will be, in essence, a breeze. I believe it's going to be a free-for-all. I believe that there are going to be some people that are going to come out and really look to track towards I'm the true America First candidate and pick up the mantle, so to speak. And that type of personality might not only be attractive to, a key Republican cohort, but it might also, some of the rhetoric that they are espousing right now, particularly their rhetoric around Zionism, might also be attractive to some on the far left. So I do believe that this is something that the Democrats need to be thoughtful of moving forward, because the next presidential election is going to be a free-for-all, both on the left and on the right. And we need to be prepared for any of the jokers out there, like these individuals, who will likely throw their hat in the ring as well.
Well, we see exactly what they're doing, Andrew, and now it's like, no, I want to be on record. I want to be able to say I spoke against that. Nah, y'all were all riding that jock.
Now, I don't know what changed with Megyn Kelly from 2024 when she was stumping for Trump. Same values, right? Same flaws as a candidate. Nothing has really changed from there. 2025 comes, nothing has really changed. But all of a sudden, now the polls are down. Now he's losing elections. Aside from Texas last night, now he's losing elections all throughout the country. And now all of a sudden there's this shift. Now it's a joke. And it's insane to me that she said, I didn't know that he was going to use the presidency to get rich. I mean, he put this in his rhetoric. The first time he was a president, he tried to do it. The Supreme Court then gave him a pass to be able to do it on the second term. So for her to now come and say that she's so surprised about how this president is conducting himself is complete hogwash. And it really, to their base and even to their listeners, to see them go from one position to the next on a monthly basis should be really just, I think, disgusting to their listeners. Can you imagine, Roland, if you took one position one day and then 6 months later you took a different position? Your followers would be in your comments, in your DMs all the time talking about how you're a flip-flopper. But for some reason, she gets a pass. So for some reason, Joe Rogan gets a pass. And I just don't understand what the right wing is really looking at when it comes to leadership in their party and what they're looking at when it comes to somebody that's going to take the reins from Donald Trump, because it just seems like they're just listening to whoever says whatever they want to hear without actually looking at this person's record and seeing that they really do just say whatever you want to hear, whether it's contradictory from something that they just said 2 months ago.
Absolutely. All right, folks, got to go to a break. We come back. Boy, more pressure being applied to Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz for announcing she's going to run for Congress in a black district. Wait till I tell you what DNC members from Florida had to say. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
They've been trying to erase black political power since Reconstruction. Now the Supreme Court is helping them finish the job. First came Shelby County versus Holder in 2013, the ruling that gutted the Voting Rights Act. Then came Brnovich in 2021, another ruling, another piece torn away. Now comes Calais, the case civil rights leaders warned could cripple the last major federal protection against racial vote dilution. And within days, Tennessee eliminated its only majority black congressional district. Louisiana, South Carolina, Alabama. The same strategy is spreading across the South. The old Jim Crow used poll taxes and literacy tests. The new Jim Crow uses gerrymandered maps, voter roll purges, polling place closures, and court rulings that make black communities politically invisible. 1965 was Freedom Summer. This is Freedom Summer 2.0, because they are still trying to erase black political power, and we will not bow.
I'm Ryan Wilson, CEO and co-founder of The Gathering Spot, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
One in 5 Texas high school students still fails to graduate, with Latino students disproportionately affected. The 2024-25 school year's 21% dropout rate represents a 3-point increase from the previous year, marking the largest single-year jump in 4 decades. According to the Intercultural Development Research Association's recent report, nearly 100,000 students from 2021-2022 freshman class who did not finish high school were lost to attrition during this period. Over the past 40 years, Texas has lost more than 4.3 million students from public high school enrollment. Joining us now, Dr. Joanna Sanchez, Senior Policy Researcher, and Paige Duggins-Clay, Chief Legal Analyst at the Intercultural Development Research Association. Glad to have both of you here. So, listen, Republicans have been running the state. They keep blaming this stuff on Democrats. As Greg Abbott, the governor, and Dan Patrick, lieutenant governor, have they accepted responsibility? What the hell's going on?
Hey, Roland, good evening. Thanks for the question. And we're so happy and honored to join the conversation. I'll kick us off by saying IDRA is a nonprofit, nonpartisan civil rights organization dedicated to equal educational opportunity. So we certainly can't comment at this time about the sort of political dynamics going on in Texas, but we do know that the policymakers in charge of the Texas legislature and our local schools have a lot of power and a lot of authority to help address issues of attrition in schools.
Yeah, but the reason I asked the question, because the reality is last year they forced through this massive vouchers bill that completely upended how the funding in Texas. Most of the people who were applying for that already had kids who were in private school. And so I don't think for a second, and this was the pet project of Greg Abbott and Dan Patrick, I don't think this is going to do anything for this dropout rate in Texas.
Well, it certainly will incentivize, and by design is, intended to incentivize students dropping out of public schools and going to private schools at taxpayer expenses. And simultaneously, that enrollment mechanism is defunding our public schools and therefore taking away critical resources that our schools need to serve all students and to keep them in school, to serve them with high quality curriculum, instruction, excellent educators, the hot meals that help kids stay connected and feel healthy and safe, the transportation that gets kids from their neighborhoods to their schools, right? All the things that families and that schools need to get them there. The voucher certainly undermines that.
So they dropped out. Where do they go?
That's a great question. That's something that we would love to know. The way it works is that with TEA, educators are able to mark, there's lever codes that they have to document why a student left. And yet one of the codes that is used most frequently is the unknown code. And so we are advocating for having those more transparency when it comes to how the students that leave these schools are tracked and document why they're leaving, because as of right now, that biggest category that we see documented by TEA is the unknown category. So without more knowledge or in-depth information on that, it's really unclear. They're lost, and we feel it's important to highlight the fact that that information doesn't exist and we need more of it.
Questions from the panel. We'll start with you, Andrew.
Yes, so I know that the most of what the teachers will mark are unknown, but are there any kind of mechanisms in place or something that the teachers should be doing to follow up when a student is chronically absent to find out why they are no longer coming to school?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fantastic question. And we have in Texas made a little bit of progress on this front. And so what I mean by that is for many decades, Texas was actually one of only a couple of states in the nation that actually criminalized truancy for young people. That meant that young people who were absent for a particular period of time actually could be ticketed and receive criminal fines and other sorts of really harmful juvenile justice implications for not coming to school, which is really, again, disincentivizes the whole point and is, proven that it's ineffective. Now we've moved away from that really harmful framework, and schools are, as of recent legislation passed in both 2023 and 2025, required to engage in what's called truancy prevention measures. And those measures are about trying to get at the root causes of why young people are not coming to school. Look, the lever codes are critically necessary so we can have accurate data and we can figure out how we should be targeting resources and interventions to keep kids and get kids in school. But we do know what the research says at a very high level, which is students who are chronically absent are often students with disabilities. They're often students with limited economic means, right? They're pregnant and parenting students. They're students who are going to work to support their family, especially in this economy. And so even though we need and continue to demand clear data, we do know what many of those root causes are, and we can take some steps to address them.
Avis?
Yeah, you mentioned some of the root causes. I definitely can see how that's the case. However, I'm also concerned that you're in Texas. And I'm wondering, to what degree will you be getting support for the wraparound services that would be needed for those families to be more secure, such that those students might be more likely to come to school? Do you see this as a broader policy advocacy issue that needs to be attacked on several fronts in order to get this issue specifically, helped ameliorate it in the future? Because you have all of these other intervening factors that need to be addressed, but apparently are not invested in at the level that they should be at the moment.
Absolutely. And I want to also make sure that my brilliant colleague Joanna can talk a little bit more about some of the very specific factors and some of the demographic trends that we saw in this attrition study that has been a long trend for several decades in Texas. So I'll tee her up for that and just totally acknowledge that, look, there's a lot of challenges for young people in Texas, whether they're economic, healthcare, and certainly education related. And again, certainly in this moment of economic struggle for so many families and what's impacting our schools, right? And so we are very hopeful that the concept of the mandate, right, for every child to have access to an equal education, which is guaranteed by our Texas Constitution, the law, which says every child in Texas must go to school, that's not political. And so we are hopeful that with sort of the broad coalition of folks that we collaborate with very closely across the state, that we'll be able to come and continue to advocate for those wraparound services and supports. And that after we've gotten some of these, quote unquote, red meat issues that have really been dividing Texans and dividing Texas political leadership, that we can get to business and get some real work done that will actually benefit Texas children and families.
Robert?
And so I think it's very important, often the communication aspect so much of this, because I can see it now, the way that the people on the other side will frame this. That when we're talking about truancy, it's very easy for a large swath of Americans to simply say, well, if we see them, we're going to lock them up and throw away the key, and we'll lock up their parents as well if they're not at school. How can we make sure that we are messaging things in such a way that the average voter, the average parent can understand exactly how these programs will work and will be able to politically put people in office who will be able to lend the type of political support to expand these programs?
Absolutely. And I also want to bring in Joanna here to maybe talk about some of those demographic trends, because I think what is key here from a communication standpoint is, sort of leading into race class narrative, right? Truancy, chronic absenteeism, and sort of school holding power is an issue that affects students across racial, across generational, across political divides. The challenges that cause students to not be able to come to school are as diverse as the millions of kids in Texas schools. And so understanding who are the students who are not making it and what are the challenges, whether it's kids in urban communities who are struggling for transportation or housing instability, dealing with, huge, health issues, or it's people out in rural Texas who, again, maybe don't have access to transportation, maybe have to go a long way to get to school and access it. And so want to make sure to flag for Joanna, if you could share maybe a little bit more about how our attrition study has highlighted some of the particular groups that have been impacted by attrition in Texas.
Yes, thank you, Paige. So yes, so in our case, as we said, right, the attrition rate in Texas is 21%, but that when we're looking at subgroups like African American or Black students, that rate is 27%, or Latino students, that's 26%. And one of the ways that IDRA has tried to make that data accessible, to shed light on it, our 40 years of data that we have, is to create interactive dashboards that we have online on our website, where stakeholders, whether that be community member, a parent, a district administrator, a policy maker at the state level, can actually go onto that website and zoom in on their neighborhood, their community, their county, to see what the trends have been in their community, to understand that this is an issue that is impacting every single county in Texas, and that we can't just say, oh, it's just students that live in an urban space or in a suburban space or in a rural space. So as researchers, and one of our ways of wanting to have a positive impact is by democratizing this data, making it accessible, and allowing people to be able to see how these trends that are quite damaging, right, of attrition and students not being able to finish high school, how it's impacting them in their backyard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Roland, just to build on that theme as well, I think the other really interesting and important point to highlight here is that when schools lose our young people, it's not just that they're missing out on their constitutionally protected right to a high quality education, right? That's bad enough, but it hurts Texans, right? This is our future workforce. These are our future nurses. These are our doctors, our lawyers, our plumbers, electricians. I just had a crazy power storm and had a lovely electrician come to my house who was a young person who talked about the ways that staying in school and getting on this really great career and technical track helped him get to this point now and was really successful. And so just to sort of round out the answer to your question about how do we get people to care about this, it's both, as Joanna was saying, understanding the data and understanding how wide and pervasive this is. 1 in 5 Texas students is a staggering number, and recognizing that the solutions are things that help everybody, that investing in high quality public education helps everybody, and an investment in the tools that schools need to get kids to come to school is an investment in our future, in our workforce, our economy, and all the things that are going to help really address these longer term issues.
A question, in terms of locations, parts of the state, where's the highest dropout rates?
What we saw in the data that we were looking at for 24-25, a lot of the urban areas, like outside of Dallas and Houston, those areas those metros had the highest. But if you actually dig into the data, it really is quite pervasive across the entire state. Whether it's a small district or a big district, it's having impact. It's something that is impacting communities across the state for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, Shirley, appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Folks, time for Black Star Network headlines with Brittany Noble.
The family of a North Carolina woman wants to know why a Georgia state trooper engaged in a high-speed chase that killed the 51-year-old grandmother. Monday's chase began after 26-year-old Freshontai White refused to pull over for a traffic stop on Interstate 20 and tragically ended at a Southeast Atlantic gas station. Shantana Patterson was standing outside a parked vehicle when White lost control of the car and then crashed into Patterson. According to the current Georgia State Patrol policy, troopers must weigh public safety against the need to apprehend a suspect immediately. The policy also indicates that not every violator needs to be pursued if the danger increases. Patterson's family and activists want to know why the trooper continued the chase and are pushing for stricter limits on the pursuits over nonviolent traffic violations. White is charged with first-degree vehicular homicide, serious injury by a vehicle, and speeding, traveling in a 55 zone, going 90 miles per hour. In Arkansas, a whites-only community is being sued by a white woman for discrimination. Michelle Walker, a woman of Jewish descent who is also married to a black man and has biracial children, says return to the land rejected her application to purchase property due to her race and religion. Walker alleges that the community's whites-only policy violates federal civil rights and fair housing laws, which prohibit discrimination based on race and religion. Orwell says he is aware of the lawsuit but has not been served. He also addressed questions about the community's stance on keeping it inclusive for only white people. And according to the group's website, plans are underway now to establish similar communities in Pennsylvania's Appalachian region, prompting questions about inclusivity and social impact. Well, during Memorial Day weekend, folks in Virginia Beach, Virginia, near the Naval Aviation Monument on 38th Street, saw a white nationalist group wearing navy polos, khaki pants, and white masks, carrying Confederate flags as they marched through the area. Virginia Beach police confirmed that the group was associated with the Patriot Front. Police say the march did not violate any laws and did not require a permit because the gathering met legal requirements and posed no public safety threat. Well, Patriot Front formed after the deadly 2017 Unite the Right Valley in Charlottesville, Virginia, and is widely identified by experts as a white nationalist hate group. And Knox County, Tennessee School District is reversing its ban on Alex Haley's book, Roots, The Saga of American Family. Well, this decision comes after weeks of community backlash, pressure from board members, and statewide criticism over the decision to pull the Pulitzer Prize-winning book from the library shelves. In a memo dated May 26, Knox County School Superintendent John Reiswick said that the district will return to the 1976 novel version effective immediately. According to a spokesperson for the school district, the book was removed based on one paragraph in Chapter 84 and was in no way a commentary on the historical, cultural, or literary value of the novel. Roots tells the story of Haley's ancestors, including the enslaved Kunta Kinte and his descendants after they arrived here in America. A historic Black church in Virginia is stepping in to help the University of Missouri's Legion of Black Collegians, the university's Black Student Council, after funding cuts for several identity-based student organizations. Alfred Street Baptist Church in Alexandria, Virginia, says it will financially support the organization, which was founded back in 1968 during the height of the Black student movement on college campuses across America. During Sunday service, Reverend Howard John Wesley criticized the Trump administration's push against diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. He said that when institutions refuse to support Black students, the community must step up. Mizzou says the decision to cut funding came after reviewing a Department of Justice memo warning schools that funding identity-focused organizations could violate federal guidance on DEI. Well, civil rights attorney Ben Crump and hip-hop legend LL Cool J are teaming up to help Black Americans build wealth with financial technology. The pair is partnering with the DreamFi, that's a platform focused on helping unbanked and underbanked communities access financial tools and achieve long-term economic stability. According to the FDIC, more than 5.5 million Americans do not have a bank account, while nearly 19 million households are considered underbanked. DreamFi says that the problem also starts with education. A recent study found that more than half of Americans rarely or never learn basic financial skills like budgeting in school, and only 28% of parents even feel confident teaching children about money management. Crump says the goal is to close the wealth gap by equipping families with the tools to achieve financial freedom for future generations.
Brittany, thanks for that. Watch the Breakdown Brittany Noble every day, noon Eastern on the Black Star Network. The Breakdown Brittany Noble every day, noon Eastern on the Black Star Network. All right, folks, going to break. We come back. Ooh, they keep going after Debbie Wasserman Schultz running in the Black District. Wait till I tell you what the DNC members have to say. But before I do that, let me be real with y'all, folks. If you're on Medicare or about to be, the system is not set up to work for you. Too much fine print, too many plans, and too many people making money off of your confusion. And look, we're used to this. We're no stranger to systems that don't have our best interests at heart, but we don't have to accept it when it comes to Medicare. That's why I'm telling you about Chapter. Their advisors are independent and honest. In fact, they're the only Medicare advisors that compare every plan nationwide. They're focused on one thing, what actually works for you. If there's a better plan out there, they'll find it. And if you're already in the right one, well, they'll tell you that too. No games here, folks. Just last year, people who switched with Chapter save an average of $1,100. Look, all it takes is 20 minutes with a real person. It's completely free. So do me a favor, call Chapter at 724. The number's right here on the screen, 724-264-8281, 724-264-8281, and chat and connect with someone you can trust. I'll be back in a moment.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
A decade of love, joy, and power. Black Voters Matter is 10 years old, and we are just getting started. This is love with a purpose. This is Black joy in motion. This is unstoppable power. Across campuses, neighborhoods, and back roads. Let's go! We show up, not just to vote, but to be seen, to be heard, to belong. We ride together, we organize together. We remind each other that our voices matter, because they always have. Black Voters Matter is about more than ballots. It's about housing and healthcare, clean water and living wages, education, reproductive freedom, and dignity. It's about turning pain into action, turning belief into movement, turning community into power. We don't wait to be invited. We bring the energy. We bring the love. We bring the people. Because when Black communities come together, we don't just survive, we thrive. This is how change happens. This is how history moves. We organize, we build, we win.
What's up? It's Talib Kweli. I'm CEO. This is the Black Star Network.
Man, the heat continues on Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She announced that she was running in the 20th district in Florida. Well, that didn't sit well with a lot of folks. The Florida Legislative Black Caucus blasting her. Candidates running in that race blasting her. And now 2/3 of the members of the Florida Democratic National Committee. Yeah, this is a story from Florida politics. Check this out right here. They say 2/3 of Florida's members of the DNC issued a lengthy statement condemning Wasserman Schultz for running in a plurality black district. It was issued by 10 DNC members, including Daniel Henry, vice chair of the Florida Democratic Party. Other members signing into the statement, Alan Clendenin, Juan Cuba, Millie Herrera, Samantha Herring, Lydia Hudson, Allison Minerly, Judy Mount, Sean Shaw, Samuel Vilches Santiago. It says, as Florida DNC members, we condemn Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz's decision to run in Florida 20, a historically black and majority black congressional district, at a time when the Supreme Court has gutted the Voting Rights Act, when black representation across the South is under coordinated attack, and when Florida Republicans have aggressively dismantled black political power through redistricting. This decision reinforces the same message Republicans have pushed for years, that black representation does not matter. It does matter. Representation matters. Lived experience matters. Man, look at this here. And so so you see what they say here. In an extensive interview with Florida Politics, Wasserman Schultz says she was upset at the attack on a traditionally black district, but also felt it was important to run there to preserve Broward County's clout and power in Congress. Under the new line, CD20 is no longer a majority black seat, but remains 42.8% black. The statement reads, our party cannot credibly denounce the dismantling of black political power by Republicans while treating one of Florida's few remaining majority black districts as a political opportunity for an incumbent seeking a safer seat. We cannot claim to defend voting rights, racial justice, and representation while undermining black political power when it becomes politically convenient. Ouch, Robert.
Well, this is the exact thing that people have been complaining about when it comes to the party, that they refuse to allow new voices to come in. They refuse to allow new people to stand up. They refuse to get out of the way when everyone tells them it's time to get out of the way. Let's not forget what happened in 2024. Everyone said in 2020 that Joe Biden should not run for a second term. If they had simply had an orderly transition from the beginning, preparing, and then try to roll it out in 3 months, we could have had a completely different outcome in that election. But we have people in power who enjoy staying in power for the sake of staying in power. And all that mouth service about believing in the need for African Americans to have representation, that falls to the wayside when it comes to this question of who's going to have the ability to control American politics to get the benefits thereof. This is one of those eye-opening moments when you get to see how the sausage is actually made and what people's actual priorities are.
Well, guess what's going on here? What we're seeing here, Avis, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, she's dropped a poll showing that she's doing extremely well. 52% of the people in the district want her, and the poll is also showing she does well among African Americans.
Yeah, I wonder who our pollster is. I will say this. I will, because I have a little bit of a background in methodology. I just would like I'd like to know more about the methodology. I will say this. Let's just talk about, like was mentioned, the sausage of politics. And the sausage of politics is this: the institutions of both political parties actually are there to help incumbents keep their seats. The DSCC, all of that stuff, the DCCC, and the Republican counterparts, those institutions are there to raise money and help incumbents win. And even though what she's trying to do is to sort of take her place in this new district, which would, given the geographic, the demographic representation of that district, one would think that it would be more natural. It would go to Black candidates. The bottom line is she is also someone who comes to this with a huge fundraising background, having been a past chair of the DNC. I mean, she can bring in millions and millions of dollars to the party. And so, the ugly sausage making of this is that I would very much doubt that the party would do anything to try to remove her out of that situation. Now, in order to counter that, Black folk need to come together and make very hard decisions. When I'm saying Black folks, I'm talking about specifically the 10 Black people that are running for office in that specific one district, and figure out, for those of you who have no chance in hell of actually getting a seat, get the hell out. I mean, you have to be able to have these tough inside the ball conversations, okay, with people who just are not there to actually a chance of winning, such that you can actually create a situation that won't result in the Black vote getting split all to pieces and just letting her just walk right in there. We have to figure out amongst ourselves who has the best chance of winning that district. And some folks are just going to have to stand down and support the ones that are most likely to potentially win. That's the only way out of this conundrum.
Particular point there, Rudolph Moise dropped out of the race. He endorsed Dale Holness and Luther Campbell over Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And so when you look at this particular story here, it lays it out here, different folks who are running. One of the folks who's also running is former Congresswoman Sheila Sherfless McCormick, who resigned from Congress April 21st. Now, she was found guilty of 25 House ethics violations. She's facing a federal indictment, but she's still running. So, not sure what's going on there. And you've got other candidates running as well. But Andrew, to the point that Avis just made, with all of that, with Wasserman Schultz and her fundraising prowess, why not go after one of those districts that Republicans are in? That becomes, frankly, that becomes a Democratic pickup. So she has high name recognition, well known in the state, can lay out what she's done. So if an African American runs for that, she can go grab one of the other. I mean, isn't that the whole point of being able to compete? If you look at this story right here, Democrat Representative Jared Moskowitz announced that he's going to be running in the redrawn 25th Congressional District. He represented the 23rd, which now includes Broward and Palm Beach counties. Then you've got Democratic Rep. Lois Franco, a West Palm Beach resident, will run in the 23rd District after serving in the District 22. The new District 22 sprawls roughly 80 miles from inland Palm Beach and Broward communities to rural and Hendry County and to Collier County along the Gulf of Mexico. It says Democratic congressional candidate Pia Dandia will run in the 22nd, which tilts Republican. She had planned to challenge incumbent U.S. Representative Brian Mast, a Stewart Republican, in the 21st District. Well, again, that's one of those things there that Debbie Wasserman Schultz says that she wants Broward to represent it. Well, if the 21st is still, excuse me, if the 22nd is, the 22nd, 21st is still representing Broward County, I mean, you do that. I mean, so that's really what others are saying. You want more Democrats running to try to take one of these seats from one of these Republicans, as opposed to running in a safe seat.
Yeah, I just don't understand that, because Debbie Wasserman Schultz has been an institution in Florida since 2005. She's been on the U.S. House of Representatives. So for her to have, I guess, such a lack of confidence in her ability to win against a GOP candidate and say, okay, well, I'm instead of just challenging another GOP candidate, I'm just going to go over here where it's traditionally Black. There's several people in the race, so they're all going to eat each other up when it comes to the vote, and then I'm going to win easily, just doesn't make any sense. And from a Democratic standpoint, we're seeing this happen even just with the race with Al Green, right? We're seeing this happen throughout the country, where we have these institution-type Democratic figures who are not going and saying, look, I'm going to go and challenge a GOP member in the general election. No, I'm just going to go to a district that's been historically Black, or it was really easy to win for Democrats, and I'm just going to be safe. That doesn't make any sense to me. And I think that everyone in the 20th district in Florida should pay attention to the fact that she's doing this only because it's easy, and also because she believes that the Black vote is going to be split. So right now, Uncle Luke looks like the best candidate in that district, which I think Debbie Wasserman Schultz knows exactly what she's doing and saying, I'm going to attack this district that does not have strong candidates because I know that I can win this election in the general election in November.
Also, keep in mind, Congresswoman Frederica Wilson is going to be, somebody expect her to announce soon that she is not going to be seeking re-election. That candidate I just told you, Rudolph Moise, he's jumped in that congressional race in the 24th because many expect that she is going to announce she's not running. She's 83 years old. She's missed the last 57 votes in Congress, suffering from an eye issue, and many expect State Senator Chevron Jones, who announced he's not going to run for his state seat,